Hello, and welcome to the Off-Meadow Umineko Read-Along podcast, where I guide my friends and first-time readers through my favorite story of all time, the highly acclaimed murder mystery visual novel Umineko When They Cry. We're discussing its narrative and themes, and they work together with our community to try and solve its various mysteries. Hope you'll all join us on this exciting journey as we delve into the witch's cat box. I'm Kyle J, and joining me on a one-way trip to Rokkenjiima, we have our readers, James Capelli, Ben, Hayley, and Becca. Welcome, y'all. So, how was your read this week?
Great. A lot of confirmed shit. Enjoying the answers arc finally that we got here a lot.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I want to read more because I want to see how everything we learn in this reading impacts the rest of it, but it's good to finally get some answers.
I mean, heavily implied answers. Nothing is confirmed.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. As I kind of mentioned previously, they do veil some things, but I think with a close reading or the shared communication that we're going to do of this episode of the podcast, answers will come out. So I don't think it's going to be too confusing for y'all.
Well, good for them.
I'm so far just angry at this reading, but that will come to light as to why.
Yeah, you did happen to get to like one of the worst parts of it. So
Yep. Thanks.
Which part was that?
The part where Dr. Nanjo is a rape apologist.
He's a what?
Where he's like, let me defend Kinzo's honor here. And it's like, okay,
yeah.
Great, thanks. I mean, obviously, the context is different because, like, obviously, different time, different place, but it is what it is.
Is not good what it is.
That is not a good enough reason. I'm choosing to not get into it until we get to that point in the summary.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't want to derail the whole podcast. We will derail at a later point in time, at the scheduled derailing point, please.
Please keep your hands inside the vehicle at all times for when it derails.
Becca, what do you think of this one?
Man, I don't even know where to start. I've been trying to think about what to say about this reading, and there's not a way to sum it up. Like, I think we just want to talk about it, but it's also very weird being in a position where I read it like multiple weeks ago.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm struggling to remember because usually it's very fresh. But rereading your summary is just, oh my God, yeah. It's weird because this is one of the shortest summaries you've ever written, but also so much happens in it that it is actually a little bit insane. Yeah, I don't know. It really sparked a lot of interesting thoughts.
Yeah. All right, well.
None of the things it sparked was joy though, right, Becca?
There is one theory of mine that it did spark that is joyful.
There might be moments of joy.
Yes. I promise there are moments of joy to come, even though you are at one of the worst parts.
Okay, thank you.
The part that you stopped at was the worst part to stop at. Like, legitimately, it gets better from there. Like,
I'm sure.
I understand why you're upset, and I'm not belittling that in any way.
I know. But
there are points after it that are a lot better and make, like, I laughed through some of this. I was like, oh, I'm seeing how these characters came to be now. Like, and I'm saying characters because you're still not sure. You get a lot of veils, but you're seeing the characters of these people come to be. And I think there is some joy in that because you're seeing someone stand up for themselves by finding their own inner strength in a sense, which I think is a little bit joyful.
That's a read, yeah. I think there's something like that.
I can't wait. I'm excited to hear this summary from Kyle's point of view before. Well, I now wish that I hadn't read any of it rather than trying to cram in as much as I could after finishing work today, because maybe it would have all been more delightful with Kyle's softened version. Not necessarily softened, but, through the eyes of Kyle.
Yeah, I don't think I really reference the segment where Nanjo talks. It's like, it's so irrelevant. Like, it's like, yeah, and then Dr. Nanjo says something that's like, fuck off, Nanjo, and then it's not really important. I don't think I even mention it.
Exactly. Yeah, so it would have been nice to have been able to gloss over that rather than start this recording with just being a ball of rage about characters in the story. But, what's new?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, rage is a perfectly valid lens to view a lot of the events that we are seeing here.
Yes, yeah.
The things we are seeing are not great.
Nope.
All right, any other thoughts before we jump into the summary? Okay. This week, we read about 3 hours of the VN, ending on the line, "Here's to the wonderful world of witches," after which there's a breaking of glass, which is videos 119 through 122 of the YouTube playlist. If you have not caught up to that point yet, go ahead and stop the podcast and catch up before joining us, or if you're just listening to us along for the ride, welcome aboard. Our story resumes with spotlights turning on one after another, lighting up what seems to be the stage of a large theater. There, a woman, reminiscent of Beatrice wearing a white dress, performs for the non-existent audience. "Let it be heard. I am one yet many. What I speak is our tale. However, this is a small world, sealed by glass and cork, with no one to hear. None shall lay eyes upon it, and my entire tale shall be sealed away, to drift in the sea of my heart until it disappears along with the seaweed. Zepar and Furfur appear, and they, together with this stand-in for our culprit, Clair, Vaux, Bernardus, will now tell the story of their life that led to this tragedy.
For fuck's sake, newbies. We have new characters again.
Aren't you so happy to see a person you've never seen before?
Kyle prepped us for this months and months ago.
Oh, I know, but like, seriously, still, I was like, Leon was enough for this one and Will, but another one? But yeah, it's fine.
Is it a new character, though? Or is it a stand-in for a current character?
Probably not. No.
Well, I think that becomes more clear as you read this, I think is what is kind of coming, is that this character is an embodiment of this unknown variable X that we've been talking about for this long.
Yeah.
And they're finally just given form and a voice, even if it's not their true form and voice. Is that right, Kyle? In a sense, not right, but like, is that a way to kind of take this? And
That's a pretty good lens to view it as.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I think like in the next reading, pretty shortly on, Bernkastel says like, "Oh, I gave you this form so that people who were too lazy to realize the truth wouldn't be spoiled," basically. Right. So yeah, it's meant to be a veil hiding the culprit's identity, but still letting them to tell their tale.
It's still a new version of a person.
As she started speaking, I did realize that, but that was my very reactionary first thought.
Yeah, that's fair. I saw that picture at the end of
Yeah, you got it in the
last reading, and I sent a picture of it to Kyle. I'm like, "Who the fuck is this?" And he's like, "Don't worry about it." I'm like, "All right." And then I didn't worry about it. And then I read, I'm like, "Oh, this makes sense." So
Literally an anti-spoiler. It is not from the side at all.
The thing is, we're familiar with the character. We knew this person existed, technically. We just didn't know that they ended up here, which I think is a very interesting like dynamic, is that we're introduced super early on to this thing that we're not sure how relevant it is. And then it turns out to be very.
I do like that whatever this form is that she's also like, I can't be mad when someone who looks cool as fuck shows up, you know what I mean? Like, she has such a great look, but also the whole, "I am one yet many, what I speak is our tale. However, this is a small world sealed by glass and cork with no one to hear." Like, very ancient loneliness vibes from this one. And I dig it. She's awesome. Despite being, yes, technically someone we already know.
Yeah. Agreed.
I mean, their design comes from the same mind that designed Gaap's outfit, or at least decided to put Gaap in that outfit, so.
True.
Act 1, A New Life. In April of 1976, a child had been brought to the Gospel House orphanage. The Gospel House had an arrangement to allow their most studious and well-behaved children to work for the Ushiromiya family as servants. This prestigious job was much coveted, as the pay and assistance with future job prospects were pivotal for starting a successful new life after leaving the orphanage. While most servants began working at the Ushiromiya family when they finished middle school or high school, this child was just starting elementary school. Not only would they be working as a servant, but they would also be attending school with Jessica, something no other servant had ever done. Kraus and Itsui had been surprised that a child so young had been made a servant, and suspected that Kinzo had hired them to serve as a friend to Jessica. They had tried to question Kinzo, but by this point he was already well into his mad occult recluse phase. Back in the chapel, Will and Leon, who are viewing this production, speculate that Genji must have been the one behind all of this. In the timeline where Natsui rejects Leon, they are brought to the Gospel House and then made to work as a servant until Genji can find the right time to reveal their true heritage. However, it would seem that time never came to pass. Clair then resumes her tale. While on duty, all servants would use their blessed names, which always contained the on character. However, when off duty, they would often call each other by nicknames based on their real names. With the last name Yasuda, this child was given the nickname Yasu. Because Yasu was so much younger than the other servants, and only worked part-time because they still attended school, many of the servants became bitter about the special treatment that Yasu received. Because of their small, weak body, they could barely perform simple tasks on their own, yet they still got the same pay and even their own room in the dormitory, which were normally 3 to a room. Yasu's only friend amongst the servants was their roommate, Shannon, who, unlike Yasu, was kind, popular, and competent. Yasu strives to become like Shannon as soon as they can. At night, in their shared room, Shannon tells Yasu that they must be special to have been made a servant so young, perhaps even a secret child of a member of the Ushiromiya family. However, if that were the case, why had Yasu been forced to live such a lonely life? Back on the stage, Zepar and Furfur questioned Genji about what all he knew. After the baby had fallen from the cliff, Genji had brought them to Dr. Nanjo, who had miraculously been able to save their life. However, Genji did not share this information with Kinzo, as he was still unsure of Kinzo's ability to separate his memory of the late Beatrice from her descendants. Afraid that Kinzo might repeat his sin, Genji had hidden the child at the Gospel House, disguising their age as 3 years younger due to their physical frailness as a result of their injuries. However, Genji had hoped that if Kinzo truly did possess the affection of a father, he would somehow sense the familiar connection without having to be told.
Okay, so this is technically the moment of the rage, but I'm going to subdue it for now. Because and I have the benefit of like literally reading this 15 minutes ago.
Sure, you're privileged in that sense. That
What is the deal here? So this kid, Yasu, idolizes Shannon of 10 years ago, which would make Shannon of now, 1986, 26. And so actually that puts Shannon in line with George's age. And so do I need to be okay with George now?
Well,
important question.
what a dilemma. I mean, you note a fairly obvious contradiction, yes.
The question you should be asking is why is Shannon of 10 years ago looking the same as Shannon in 1986? And
Because
it's because
she's 16 and 26.
No. Well, actually, I can't discredit that. You know what? Is it disproven? No. My theory is that Shannon is Yasu's Tyler Durden. So
I can dig that. I like it.
My immediate theory was that Shannon dies and Yasu never
Adopts Shannoning.
yeah.
I would actually really like that. Because the thing we know about Shannon, at least in 1986, is that she's actually a little bit clumsy. One of the first things she does in episode 1 is fuck up the tea and Natsui gets upset with her. So the way Shannon is presented in Yasu's memory is not the way we've seen Shannon presented in 1986.
That is true.
Yeah, I really picked up on that as well. I'm like, what happened to Shannon?
Wow, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, this isn't the same Shannon.
So it's important to note that Shannon was a child with Jessica and Battler's age. Like that did happen. She wasn't like a 20-year-old person during that time.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Like they did know her as a child. So
Yeah.
Shannon is a Tyler Durden theory
Tyler
going
Durden.
strong.
Yeah, I think you're right, Becca. It has to be. Like, what else can explain this other than magic, which we're all like.
More answers are to come in this section of the reading.
I think it's sci-fi.
Yes!
coming around.
Yes! That's my boy!
Cap's theory would be really cool too, though. Like if she died in 1976 and then Yasu kept her alive by becoming her.
Yeah, because that's apparently all that Yasu was born to do is, the Beatrice line of children is just born to be the rebirth of somebody else. Like, ugh.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that now?
Do I?
Yeah, let me summarize the scene since I didn't actually include it in the summary here. Dr. Nanjo decides to butt in and be like, let me defend Kinzo's honor here. He didn't always see Beatrice as being the reincarnation of Beatrice. I believe he did see her as his daughter. And then the immediate line after that is like, no, he probably always saw her as Beatrice because he named her Beatrice. So he probably always kind of thought that way. Which also, having a thought about her as his daughter earlier does not make it better. In fact, I think that makes it way worse, honestly.
Yeah. I was like, how is that better,
Yep.
Nanjo?
I think Nanjo is just, and I'll let Hayley say her piece. As somebody who is a Nanjo defender through and through, I can't really defend this, but
I think that's kind of the point, though. Like it's indefensible, and what do you do when someone you respect does something like that?
Yeah, I think that he's trying to say like an argument and realizing he's failing at the same time. So
That's very generous of you, Ben, because now I just straight out hate Nanjo.
That's fair.
He's on my shit list along with the rest of the Ushiromiyas, and at first I thought he was decent. But now Genji is like top of the list of people that I have mad respect for trying to give a kid a good life despite all of the shit that good-ish, as good as Genji has the power to.
Yeah, maybe.
So, yeah. I'm trying to channel this rage into like positivity,
okay.
like Genji is so far from what I've seen appears to be actually the stand-up person in the whole story. He's just trying to do the right thing.
He made an attempt, whether or not that was he may have made some bad choices, I feel like, along the way.
Oh, for sure. But,
yeah.
he actually, it seemed like his heart was in the right place, I think.
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe I haven't read enough to be fully saying this with any confidence.
No, but I see where you're coming from. I think it's a valid position to take.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this whole, I don't know, it was probably about 10 15 minutes worth of reading about this where I just kept stopping and being like, what did they just say? Why are they minimizing rape, basically, of a young woman by her own father? Like, they don't call it rape. And I just feel like that's a really egregious oversight.
I think part of that is just that I feel like the author probably just didn't want to put the word rape in their story, right? I think like they wanted to veil that to some degree.
But that's such, like, you shouldn't write about stuff like that if you're not willing to say it.
I agree, Hayley.
A little bit of having your cake and want to eat it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you want to talk about this really heinous stuff and you'll do it metaphorically, but you won't say the word is
Yeah.
But I also think it's probably fair that I don't think those characters would have called it rape either, honestly. I mean, we're talking about 1980s Japan.
Yeah.
That is true.
That's true.
I do think that is a good point, is that like they would avoid it.
That was pretty spousal rape posthumously with her spirits. I don't know. How would you interpret that?
Good God. In 86, was that? I don't think that was even into law yet, was it? I think there wasn't such a thing as marital rape.
Yeah.
I feel like that came in the late 80s, 90s. I don't know. I'm just guessing. So yes, I do hear you. And I do agree that the people in a tale at that time probably wouldn't have actually explicitly called it what it is. But this wasn't written then. It was written, 20 years ago? 15 years ago?
Oh, God, don't say it like that. It's that was like 20 years ago. Oh, God.
Was it?
Yeah, it was about them, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I shan't be on a soapbox. It made me very upset, but it is what it is. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. I am just going to try and channel my rage into more of a positive light for the others.
Fair enough.
It is a worthwhile soapbox to be on.
Yes, for sure.
But I do also think like that is the lowest point of this whole reading. So hopefully from here it is uphill.
Yeah. And I do think it's remiss not to talk about it. And I regret not putting at least the point in there to talk about it in my summary. Because I now just like, I'm going to not bring this up. But it's worth noting that, that they are really minimizing this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's horrible. And like nobody calls it incest either. And like and that's literally what it is. I'm also genuinely stunned by how much of this I had sort of intuited right from the go, that there might have been some kind of incest plot. There's probably a kid, another kid out there that has some kind of link to the family, that maybe it was something to do with the Fukuin house. These are all things that I've said. Just to see them at the beginning of this reading and in the last one as well, I'm like, wait a second, have I read this before and just forgotten? Because that is how my brain sometimes kind of goes. But no, I don't think I have.
Yeah, I've definitely picked up some of the subtext, some of the clues that they were seeding in there. Like a lot of stuff was definitely like ominously looming over the story, and so it was good that was was noticeable.
I wanted to be wrong.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I really wanted to be wrong because this is fucking horrible.
I also wanted to be wrong for the implications for what it means for all the great shipping in this story. So. Act 2, The First Friend. Sometime later, the servants are cleaning the chapel, as they are ordered to several times a year, even though no one ever enters it. When it is time to finish up, however, one of the other servants, who all look like one of the seven sisters of Purgatory, notices that Yasu has misplaced the small dusting broom. Apparently, Yasu is well known for misplacing things after setting them down. Yasu thinks this must be a prank by the witch Beatrice, as described in one of Kumasawa's many ghost stories. It would seem that Kumasawa would always make sure to teach new servants about the island's spooky past as Rokkenjiima and the shrine to seal away evil spirits. As Koda and Kanon attest, sharing that story and treating it like it was real became a part of the work culture of servants of the Ushiromiya family. As Yasu hurriedly searches for the small broom, the other servants all leave as the sun starts to go down. Beginning to panic as the chapel grows dark, Yasu begins to hear the mocking voice of the witch who is constantly moving the small broom to the next window over just as Yasu arrives at where it just was. Knowing that the witch is invisible, Yasu uses the eyes of their heart, as they were taught in the gospel house, to feel God's presence, to perceive the witch Beatrice behind them. Beatrice, who currently has the form we now know as the great demon Gaap, is impressed that Yasu is able to converse with her. By having seen Beatrice and acknowledging her existence, Yasu has created a bond with this evil spirit. Taking the small broom as evidence of their meeting, Beatrice says that she will return it if and when she decides that Yasu is worthy of being her friend. Once Beatrice has vanished, Yasu returns their perception back to the real world and leaves the chapel. And of course, just outside, along with the key left in the chapel door so they might lock up, lies the small broom. It would seem that Yasu has made their first friend.
I can't believe the Stake Purgatory sisters are real.
Yep.
I was so happy.
That was like,
that
I
was.
was happy. I was not expecting it. I was ready for that just to be like a stupid. And now knowing that, like, oh, they actually, like, there's a reason that they look like that, and there's a reason they act like that, gives them.
We should have a uniform, all being from Fukuin House, like just being a bunch of
Yeah.
orphans. Also, it really explains why they would be like thematically so important to Angie as well. Like, I don't know. It was very well. It was sneaky.
It was very sneaky. I wonder if that was the plan from the beginning. Like, and obviously we won't know, but
I mean, at this point, all of the furniture has shown up as somebody else, like asterisk on Gaap.
Right. Yeah.
But everybody else is like, so now it's like, oh, okay. I wonder who the goat men are.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if they reveal that later.
Like the goat men could easily be like metaphors for the original inhabitants, right? The soldiers.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I could see that being a thing.
yeah, that could be it.
But yeah, when we saw the sisters, I was like, oh shit. I never thought we would get any depth to these characters, and now, here's a little taste. It's not much. They are all caricatures or, archetypes of something shitty, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be much, though.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And the parts we see here, they definitely seem to have more normal. They're not like as over the top. They definitely, when the 7 stakes identities were created of them, like their personalities were definitely like stretched to more fit the sin that they were like assigned, I think.
Right. But why are they paperweights?
I do want to say that watching the Gaap version of Beatrice appear, I was like, how have I never realized they have the same fucking face before? Because now I look at Gaap and I'm just like, that's Beatrice with a funky hairdo. And I can't believe I didn't realize it before. But then also, Kyle did point out, and he's right, that a lot of the art in this game, like, there's not a whole lot of variation in the faces. But I think it's like, oh, the hair color. It's just that it's in such a crazy different style. It fooled me. But now I look at her, I'm like, it's crazy that she looks both so much like Beato, but also not at all like Beato.
Turns out she was the prototype Beatrice.
Oh, on that point, something I meant to mention just because it made me laugh out loud. So there were moments of joy even in the first act, were Zepar and Furfur mocking Kinzo by saying all he said was Beatrice. So yes, I enjoyed that very much. Yeah.
Yeah, get his ass.
His everyone for continue to be great.
This is exciting. I can't wait to read this. This seems like it's going to be a cute little bit of story, which is a nice reprieve.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah. Zepar and Furfur are interesting in this segment because it's kind of unclear why they're here. Because they're also they're kind of like performers on the stage. They take the place of some people in the performance. They like interview people sometimes. I don't know. It's unclear what their relationship is to Clair and like how the story is being told. At least I would say it's apparently unclear. I think I understand it, but it is interesting.
Does it have anything to do still with like the way they were conducting the test of love or whatever? Like, is that a different capacity than how we're seeing them now? Is it all kind of supposed to be the same function? I don't really understand them.
I'm not sure.
I mean, they are just theatrical.
Yeah.
Like, that's just their point, is just to be theatrical, I'm pretty sure. But I've been wrong before. So I guess when I said earlier we've seen everybody in the real world, quote unquote, we haven't seen them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're demons, canonical. We know that they're demons of some sort, right?
Yep, they're one of the great demons.
So, yeah.
So is Runaway.
Yep, so is Runaway one, so is Gaap.
Right. But yeah, I guess that's the point, right? We know Runaway is obviously Genji, and Gaap is another version of Beatrice that we're learning, created by Yasu with the eyes of their heart. So where did Zepar and Furfur come from?
If they are also demons, and so if we think we've got 3 categories, we've got demons, witches, and humans, and there's probably a human for each of the demons or witches. I think we might have, if we assume that this is all told from a Beato perspective, and I don't know which one, but it's her story, then could the demons be representative of the people that she considered allies, or herself even?
Yeah.
As well. Like, if you think some, like, Zepar and Furfur, possibly other versions of Beato, like Gaap is, then, I don't know, just a thought.
I think it's a fair read. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, kind of a derailing thought. I just wanted to bring that up because it's not really something that gets touched on much, but I thought it was worth noting that their presence is not quite explained. So
No, it is really interesting. And like their existence is quite vague, and that's why I'm intrigued by it. Anyway.
I'm surprised you left out, like, this is a small detail, but when Yasu goes into the chapel to look for the broom, the fact that Shannon says that she'll wait for them,
oh yeah,
and then it's just, we just never see Shannon again until Act 3.
Yasu like looks out the window as the sun's going down and sees like Shannon and the rest of the servants leaving.
No, Shannon doesn't leave. The rest of the other servants.
The other servants are leaving, and they see Shannon like looking back, and it's kind of implied that she may have left. It's not entirely clear.
Oh, I missed that. I thought she said she was waiting outside the chapel.
I'm not sure. I mean, that's something we could check, but I think she leaves, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, one thing I think is interesting to note, the broom is just left outside with the key, and that's where they were standing when they were told that the broom was missing, which implies that one of the servants had taken it and left it there once Yasu went inside to go search for it, I think.
Yeah. Sure is. Sure does.
Or a witch took it. I mean, whatever.
Kumasawa's still the best for leaning into the ghost stories. And,
Yes,
with her witch being Virgilia and Beato's mentor, like, it seems like Beato really thought of her as like a mother.
And we actually get a good explanation of why she is the mentor in one of these upcoming sections. So you'll get to see some more.
Oh my God.
Kumasawa stuff. So.
Yeah.
Keep reading.
Well, yeah, she cares about her grandchild.
Yeah, it's basically true. Like she said that she treated the Kuadori Beatrice basically as if she was her own child. So
yeah,
Yasu would functionally be Kumasawa's grandchild.
You did not get to the part that would have made you happy in this reading.
Yeah.
So
Damn it.
I think that would have at least helped you, even if it was just a distraction.
I'm still not letting go of the theory that Kumasawa is the original Beatrice.
Okay.
And there's like some kind of wild misogyny, like Kinzo's just rejecting her because she's old now, and he can only possibly have any kind of feelings for a young woman.
I mean, sounds like him.
No, I think he's just genuinely lost his marbles and just straight up doesn't recognize her.
That is interesting. That is an interesting take.
I love it. I like this theory.
Like, I think she lived her whole life under her father's almost authoritarian rule, which is easier to ignore when you're also loaded and rich. And then you thought you found this guy who you fell in love with. I mean, but who was going to open the world to you. And instead he tucks you away on this island.
My God.
Forever. And you're like, I need to fucking get away from this dude. So you fake your own death at the expense of leaving your child with him. And then you find out
that he raped your child?
I mean, it's the details. The details would have to be really weird. Like, it could work for this story.
Yeah, I don't think it's an impossible possibility. I just don't think there's textual evidence for it, so it's tough to make the claim that that's what's happening.
There's a lot of things that we're learning that's like, was there really evidence? And like, I think that the foreshadowing is there for it to be, like, if it happened, I could be like, yeah, I could see looking back how it works.
Yeah, I would like to see some more signs that Kinzo like has lost his mind in that specific way. You know what I mean? If that's the case, there are a few things I would want to see in foreshadowing that I don't think we see. This is taking a detective's like look back and like, well, what evidence should I expect to see given if that's the possible?
Yeah,
but that's not always the case. Obviously, like not every story is written. Perfectly in that way.
This is literally the only time we have ever spoken to Kinzo.
Yep.
Like this is the only time we've ever seen him on screen, and it's in a world in which he didn't go quite as insane. So, I mean, like,
dude, I'm sold.
We haven't been given the opportunity to see what he could do.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but like, I'm firmly in the Kumasawa is the mastermind. Hayley called it immediately, and I'm just like, okay, like, so really leaning into the why done it. And if this crazy theory isn't correct, I think the why done it works perfectly fine as it seems to be heading. The story does not need this twist. Is it better for the twist? It would really depend on how it's delivered.
Yeah, we have to see how it ends, obviously, before we can say that a twist would make a better ending, but yeah.
Well, I just like, there's crazy, wacky twists and endings because for the sake of doing a crazy, wacky twist and ending.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, clearly the details of the culprit has been thought out well in advance. The specifics, probably more fluid. But it's just like, yeah, it's like you've watched this guy basically tear your family asunder, kill your grandchild at the expense of doing horrific things to your grandchild. Like the thing that throws me off of it the most is that it would have taken this long to get revenge.
Yeah. And also, it kind of seems like, what is revenge against the broken Kinzo that we see in the story? What does that even look like? He's already so fucked. And actually, he's dead by the time even the story actually starts. So who are we getting revenge against? Yeah.
His legacy. It's all his legacy.
We didn't like his legacy.
Generational. Like, she can fuck up the rest of the family forever. That's
Yeah. Because, by that logic, Kyle, what's Yasu even doing?
Well, that is something to consider still.
Yasu is becoming. Beato's whole thing is to exist, remember?
I understand, but what makes that like the motivation for this?
We've not gotten to parts that I think explain that further other than what we've seen so far, so we'll have to wait and see.
My inclination is to say that it's like they want to finally be known in some way, but for as what and for what reason, still unclear to me.
Okay. The more I think about like the needing to exist, the more it feels like, I'm not going to say this is the author's intent, because especially like the way they've handled this Kinzo stuff recently, I don't think that this is anything the person really has a desire to explore. But I think it could be taken in a trans, or if you're going to go less into that, just like a homosexuality coming out sort of thing, like, this is who I am, family, accept me for who I am and who I see myself as. And it's that desire to not just be accepted, but be seen.
Okay, I can see that. And with the whole like Shannon canon discourse, there's definitely like very much some trans readings you can do of the story. So it's definitely something to keep in mind as we look back at things. Act 3, Days Enraptured. While Yasu had been performing admirably for a child of such a young age, having to balance both school and work, the other servants, who had to work so hard just to have been selected for this position, were incredibly uncharitable. After having their master keys moved by Beatrice multiple times and getting in trouble for misplacing them, Yasu turns to Kumasawa for help in dealing with Beatrice's pranks. Kumasawa teaches Yasu the spiderweb charm to tie their master key to a string so that it can't be lost or stolen by the witch. For other items, Kumasawa teaches Yasu to personify them, so they will cry to be returned home to where they belong as soon as possible, instead of being left out to be tempted by the witch. Kumasawa, who knew Yasu's true identity, thought it nice to imagine that the late Kuidorian Beatrice might be watching over their child like this. Later, when Yasu once again leaves their master keys lying around, Kumasawa's charms prevent them from being lost. Yasu once again perceives Beatrice, now their friend, who says that Yasu should thank her for forcing them to fix their weakness and turning it into a strength. Finally getting used to their work, Yasu was able to begin finding joy in their new circumstances. Taking up Kumasawa's hobby of reading mystery novels, Yasu would tell her all of their theories as they were reading, and Kumasawa, who already knew the answer, would just smile knowingly, a feeling that any of our listeners who have already finished Umineko surely understands. While reading Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, Beatrice appears and says that once you have read the answer, it becomes a mystery novel with a crime possible for humans. However, if you tear out those last pages, the tale instead becomes a fantasy, the crime perpetrated by a witch using magic. And finally, Beatrice definitively answers the greatest mystery of this whole story. Is Umineko a book or a game? We also learn where a corporate got the idea of throwing message bottles out to sea from.
Kyle.
You're so full of shit. You're so full of shit.
Get out of here.
Hayley, there's a part in this where the author literally says to the audience, like, it's a game of the mind trying to figure out a mystery. And I messaged Kyle and I was like, I'm sorry, this is still a book.
I missed that.
Oh my gosh.
I love that. I love it.
An Encyclopedia Brown book is still a book.
And yet it proposes a game for the readers to play.
Yep. Obviously, the story is full of themes of duality, so clearly it's both, but
Yeah.
Yes, we love to exist in a gray area.
Mm.
Oh, dear. This is such, Kyle, this is so lovely. Hearing how Kumasawa is talking to this little kid. It's just, I love the whimsy.
You'll really enjoy actually reading this part, man. Really.
Yeah, whimsy, delight.
yeah, it's very cute because they act out the teaching of the magic charms and stuff as a way to
Oh my God.
teach Yasu to do things that are good for them while also in a way that resonates with them. It's very cute.
It's why witches are afraid of spiderwebs.
Yep.
Kumasawa says so.
Yeah. Just so good.
I'm trying to connect the dots between Kumasawa to Yasu to Maria. and like how I don't know. It's just it makes me go back to my very early theory that Maria is a child made produced similarly to how Yasu was born or Leon was born.
Sure.
And it's just like if Kumasawa is just like collecting all of these children of, we'll say, unfortunate circumstances, just to be light on it as possible. It's just like, okay, is she just creating like a harem of witches? That's just like witches are people who are justified in having it out for the world.
I think it's a fair read. Yeah. It's a fair interpretation of what being a witch is. Although I think we're about to get to a segment where the witch Beatrice is born more directly, and I think we can interpret a different interpretation from that as well.
Well, I look forward to it. I think the only other thing I want to say is that I think overall my favorite thing about this game, this story, whatever, is just the meta
We got him.
narrative. I'm the one who calls it a game. You're agreeing. Why are you booing me? I'm right. Is just the meta narrative on mystery novels like as a whole. I'm enjoying it immensely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really cool metaphor. It's interesting that like I wonder where did the author come up with that idea first, and that's like where this entire premise came from, or if that was something they came up with later, because it's really brilliant.
Yeah. A few months ago, I was looking for a good mystery book because I think we like finished episode 5 or something, and I'm like, my brain is itching for that good puzzle. And I read one from one of our readers recommended it, the Decagon House, which
because it's referenced in Umineko.
Yeah, it was lacking.
Yeah, it's kind of like a classic Japanese mystery. It's more lauded for being its place in history rather than being like an especially good story.
Right. And so I was just like, man, I don't think I'm ever gonna get like a mystery novel like this, except for this, because of the scope is just like a book could never be this long, this in depth. A series could, but not a book. Right. So like that's another reason I like VNs so much, especially like I don't love the crunch that a lot of Japanese media publishers put on their creatives, especially for mangas and things like that. I think it's very unhealthy. But the people who do it, who are good at it, churn out incredible pieces of art, and I have to respect that too.
I'm trying to think if I know of any it is wild how big this mystery is, how long it is, because mysteries are fragile. I mean, I say that, but like it's one of the themes of the story is just like Beatrice is playing Russian roulette all the time. Beatrice is playing stick the knives in the barrel all the time, where like any one random knife can just, that's it, you're done. And so I think it's incredible how, and this is true of largely of all mysteries, how well crafted they are to like give you the hints that you can see in retrospect, but not like give it away ahead of time. But how long this is, how many times they go through the iterations of the story that most people don't catch onto it super quickly. I think it's really impressive. I mean, to be fair, there's some cheating in there a little bit in the way that they kind of hide what they're doing in a lot of ways. But it's a really impressive piece.
I think it is a really well constructed mystery, but yeah, I think it is deliberately obfuscated and presented to you to completely obfuscate that for like the first half of the story. And it's not really until you start catching on to exactly what separating the metaphor from the reality that's happening, because that's really the trick it's pulling, is that it's intertwining all of these things that are stand-ins for reality that you can't really interpret until you have the vocabulary, and it teaches it to you gradually, which is, a really interesting way of storytelling all on its own. It's so unique.
Yeah, and that's part of how it's able to kind of pull one over on you, because it really is leading you by the nose, right? It's giving you the tools to unravel it, but at the pace and in the way it wants you to look, it's directing your attention at certain things at certain times so that you get a very specific experience. And it's really impressive how often people will read this and they'll be like, I was thinking the exact same thing Battler was thinking. Right, and numerous people, like I've seen a lot of people read the story, and they're like, "How is this happening? Am I always on the same page the Battler is?" And I think it's part of that brilliant magic trick of directing the reader's attention to certain things. Because, objectively, episode 1 is a straight up and down classic murder mystery. Right? There's no red truths to mislead you, and I think it's one of the most brilliant things about the story. The red truth is such a red herring. It's such a big mislead because it really focuses your attention on certain details. It just makes you completely dismiss the classic methods of solving these stories. So many answers actually come up from that. And so it's really interesting to go back and look at these, as I'm sure everyone will, and take a look at that as how it's designed from the perspective of knowing how things come together.
Hayley shot you daggers as soon as you said, as I know everyone will.
Yeah.
It was very funny.
I probably won't. We know this, though. I'm sure that's why Kyle said it.
Yes, I usually say it because I know that Hayley has made it very clear that it's not something they want to do.
I wanted to make sure the daggers were known to the audience.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben.
No problem. We got to keep our knives out.
Fair nice. Glass onion.
Third movie.
We don't want to wake up the dead man. We want Kinzo to stay dead.
There it is.
That's true.
There it is.
That's true. And that is what this is. We're waking up the dead to interrogate them and find out, their hidden truths.
Are they dead or are they alive, though?
I mean, that is a fair open question.
They have all blown up except for Eva. That I think that's the
Oh, I see.
the true story.
Oh, you think that's the canon?
In terms of like an answer arcs, like we're getting so many specific answers on certain things, and there's still so much. It's like, well, I mean, I guess that's what like we still have to speculate on so much. We'll see how much of that actually gets answered as we continue, because as I said before, a lot of this stuff is still left pretty open to interpretation. So
I have to respect an author who really has to trust their audience so much with a story like this to be like, I cannot spoon feed you everything, but at the same time, I'm gonna bombard you with details that might be relevant, might not, to, like you were guys saying, was like obfuscate the truth. And it's got to be engaging the whole way through.
And that is one of the benefits of the length of the story, is that you're able to obfuscate things better because there's so much content. Like, for example, I don't want to give, there's specific scenes early on that are like,
the numbers like that are supposedly battlers and maybe Beatrice's birthday, the quality and details of the magic circles, the magic charms, the mirror. Yeah, like there's so many things.
Yeah, there's lots of details that will jump out. If you go back and read them, you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how obvious that was. But like it's all incorporated so well.
And that's what every good mystery is able to accomplish. Is you look back and you're like, I was a blind fool.
Yep, I agree. That's why one of the reasons why I think the reread is like absolutely a fantastic thing to do. It is a really enjoyable experience. Act 4, New Days. Over a year passes, and one day, all of the servants currently working besides Yasu decide to leave, making Yasu the senior servant. Yasu and Shannon try to guide the new servants from the gospel house, but they refuse to take their jobs or the threat of Beatrice's pranks seriously. However, things changed when one of the servants, Belne, started experiencing a protracted campaign of her keys going missing. At first, she thought it was Yasu playing a prank on her, but the incidents persisted, including some impossible for Yasu to have perpetrated, like just the key to the room they were all just cleaning being removed from her keyring and appearing in her locker. After several such incidents, Belne became a true believer of Beatrice's curse. Seeking help from Yasu, Shannon, and Kumasawa, Belne began leaving offerings for Beatrice in the VIP room and prayed at the Shinto shrine on the reef. And then, the incidents suddenly stopped. From then on, Belne always made sure any new servants understood that the witch Beatrice was real and to respect her or be cursed. We then see the key disappearance incident from Yasu's perspective. Tired of Belne's insolence, Beatrice decides to use her magic to show her a prank that no human could do. Possessing Yasu's body, Beatrice turns Belne's key into a golden butterfly. Gold because she is the source of Kinzo's gold, and a butterfly because she is weak to spiderwebs. Beatrice moves the key into Belne's locker, and then gives Yasu their body back. Later that night, Yasu still can't get over the wonderful feeling of having Beatrice's magic flow through them. Up until now, Yasu had always idolized Shannon and wanted to grow up to be a perfect servant like her. Now, though, we hear Yasu's voice for the first time, and they say that they would rather be a witch instead. Saying goodbye to Shannon, Yasu ascends to a higher plane of existence. There they change the very nature of their world. Now, Shannon would be on her own, and Yasu would take over the identity of the witch Beatrice. The old Beatrice will instead become a different witch, who was a friend to Beatrice before she became a witch herself. New Beatrice takes on the witch-like manner of speaking and gives herself a new form of a white dress to match the ghost stories of Beatrice wandering the mansion dressed in white, the same as we see in Clair. They divvy up the magical powers and weaknesses too. Beatrice will keep all of the traditional weaknesses of the evil spirits, but she expands her weakness to the spiritual mirror of the shrine to include all mirrors. After all, no matter who they want or strive to be, the only face that will ever show in a mirror is the heartlessly pathetic and realistic face of Yasu. Deciding to build up the rest of the details of this new world later, Beatrice prepares to leave her old life and room behind, rewriting their old self out of existence. Now Shannon had always been the sole inhabitant of this room, the dutiful servant who always does her best and enjoys discussing mystery novels with Kumasawa. She has no memories of Yasu, and should she ever meet Beatrice while walking the mansion's corridors at night, it will be their first meeting. Beatrice, having ascended to the world of witches, was now only restrained by the limits of her own imagination. Oh, I am one yet many. Hi-ha-ha-ha. Here's to the wonderful world of witches. And that is the end of this week's reading.
Love that reveal.
I'm still mad at this part.
Mad at it?
I don't like it. I think it's fine.
It's definitely confusing.
Like, I think it's a good writing, but as somebody who really wants answers, this just adds more questions. And like,
What?
I'm talking about the rewriting. Like, I'm talking about the writing of existence. I'm talking about like the things that obviously didn't, to me, I still look at this as a mystery, and I have this entire time. Like, I'm trying to figure out how this would logically happen, that how this character Yasu no longer lives with Shannon, wrote herself out of existence. How does that like happen in a narrative? And I'm trying to figure that out.
Do you want me to share what I'm very certain I have the answer?
Are you saying this is all Shannon?
I don't think we have a single name that best fits this character, but there is the person who becomes Beatrice, who we see as Yasu, who is Kinzo's grandchild, has a strong case of multiple personality disorder.
Correct.
So they psychologically have erased Yasu, have replaced that person with Beatrice, and now only Shannon exists. At this current juncture, we're going to see them adopt the persona of Kanon, and we're going to possibly see how they figure out like some quick change, costume, makeup stuff that the rest of the family doesn't recognize that this is a single person.
Single body.
Single body, yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, because like what do we know about Yasu? They're weak and frail. They are around the same age as Jessica, supposedly, because Kraus and Natsui think Genji brought them on to be a friend to Jessica, even though they're technically 3 years older than Genji says they are. Yeah, like all of that matches canon.
That's why furniture can't be in love, because they're not just one person. Claire literally says, I am many.
Yep.
It's just like realistically the absolute only explanation. But as I was talking to Becca about this, we did get to a point where we're like, wait, at one point, one of the servants, I think Belne, mentions that she like references about Shannon. She doesn't talk to them, but she's like, Shannon would do it like this. And I was like, how does that work? And the only thing I could think of is like,
didn't we see Kanon in this reading though?
Momentarily in the meta stage, but only in the meta stage.
Yeah, they appear and they talk, he and Goda explain how...
I hate that guy.
I hate that guy. They explain how they followed the belief in the witch, even though they technically didn't believe that was part of the culture. They explained that part of it, yeah.
She doesn't talk about Shannon. Yes, okay. Because Yasu, it's when they're trying to mentor the new servants. Yasu's trying to tell them, like, oh, beware of the witch. And it might be Belne, like you said, Cap. You don't really believe in that, do you, Shannon-chan? But it's in response to what Yasu just said. But we're directed to think that Shannon is also in the room. But it is a direct response to the thing Yasu just said. So maybe Yasu is already taking on the persona of Shannon and having like an out-of-body perception of the conversation. But
I mean, this whole act 1, 2, 3, 4 is the literal definition of an unreliable narrator.
Yeah, I think it is deliberately written to be ambiguous in that way, where she could be directly responding to Yasu, thinking Yasu is Shannon, or as we're led to believe, Shannon is also in the room, but like no definitive way to tell. So,
well, there are a few statements in this summary that I think give some interesting information about that conundrum. I will call your attention back to a segment in Act 1 when Yasu was talking about how the other servants are jealous that they have a solo room.
Yes.
Oh, but also don't forget the roommate Shannon, who is also there apparently.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I said to you, Kyle. I was like, they're in their own room, but Shannon is there?
Yep. And then they even say, why not 2 and 2?
Yes.
They say, why didn't they split the rooms 2 and 2? Well, because they clearly must have split it them to have one in that 3-person room. Also, when all the servants leave, except for Yasu. Oh, and then Shannon's there, and still giving advice to all the other servants. There's definitely something going on with Shannon not being there or being either a figment or something along those lines for a lot of these scenes.
Yeah. It just makes the scenes that we've had, like in episode 2 specifically, between Beatrice with Shannon and then with Kanon, just like, this is the same person with like warring personalities with themselves, and like that is not the state of a good mind. But again,
I mean,
unreliable narrator who wrote episode 2, like that's all things to have to consider. I know,
yeah.
But isn't that also kind of like how you work through problems in your head, or at least for me, I'm like, if you're ever
become
have
a
something you're
witch,
trying to work out,
myself,
you argue with yourself, right? You go back and forth when you're trying to make an important decision on something. So like to me, all of those conversations did at the time and still now especially do read like philosophical debate.
Mm.
So, yeah. Sorry, Kyle, you were going to say something too.
Yeah, I was just going to say that in terms of like dissociative identity disorder, I think that is absolutely a very valid reading of what's happening. There's other interpretations of along the lines of you could read this as like
An imaginary friend.
yeah, imaginary friend or uncertainty of identity, depending on how like thematic they're being with the way they're phrasing these things. Like we don't know exactly how literal these depictions are, how unreliable the narration is if these things are being shown as like, does Yasu literally have a tulpa of Shannon in her head that sometimes takes over her body? Like that is a viable way to read that. Or it could just be that like Yasu imagines a perfect servant to kind of personify. It is a mask they wear sometimes. Those are different ways to look at it.
Yeah, this is another thing that made me think that Shannon was like dead and then repurposed their personality, is that in episode 1, she is constantly presented as this ditzy, klutzy, imperfect servant. And it's just like, what has changed? Like, it helped craft this narrative, this idea that these characters were evolving, not in the metaverse, in between games.
Mm.
And now it's like, okay, but these are characters that are under control of Beatrice the whole way through to craft the story as she needs it. But also, why is Natsui such a bitch?
Yeah, that is the true mystery of Umineko. What is Natsui's deal? Now, I mean, we've seen a lot of that Natsui's like obviously going through some shit, so it doesn't excuse it, but it does explain some of it.
I mean, and this is not an attempt to be reductive at all, but it's also just like this person fell off a cliff as an infant.
Yes, that is also very true.
We know that they have physical ramifications from that.
That's
It
a
would
good
also
point.
make sense that there are mental ramifications or
Yeah.
like, a sustained brain injury that may have affected their development in some way,
Or they're just very good at disassociating, right? I mean, like
or that.
they basically were lived alone for like most of they were raised as a child without much interaction, it seems like. So it seems like they might just have like a very strong disassociative tendency
Yeah.
that might manifest that is in a very extreme manner.
Being fed fantasies by Kumasawa.
Now, something that actually just pinged for me now, right, is the fact that we know that this person has individual relationships with every single one of the Ushiromiya grandchildren. With George, it's Shannon. With Jessica, it's Kanon. With Maria, it's Beatrice. With Battler, it's somebody he made a promise to 6 years ago that he doesn't remember anything about, supposedly. But assumedly, it's Beatrice.
That's Shannon. He made a promise to Shannon.
Is it Shannon?
Like I'm not saying we're forgetting something that's said. That's just the thing that makes the most sense and why he couldn't remember. He's like, I never met you, and then she's like, you're right, you never met me. You made me a promise.
Right. Yeah. Or like a fourth identity we do not know yet is my question mark. So
It's possible.
Fair, yeah. Because we also have Gaap, who is there.
And Clair as a personification of the tale.
But like Kyle was saying earlier, what are the breadcrumbs that get there? And it's the fact that we have a couple of passing comments of how Battler and Shannon were kind of flirty. George got jealous and kind of stepped in when Battler left.
Yep. Also, we know that the culprit has to be someone who's introduced early in the story. Nox. Thank you.
So then we have the flashback where somebody is looking at Battler standing on the beach talking about his ideal person. And seemingly the first Beatrice we see is Gaap, not the one we are shown in episode 1, because they're modifying that and they didn't introduce themselves because they were waiting for Battler to come back to the island. Here he is. Supposedly, who the fuck is this actual guy? We don't.
Also, the version of Beatrice in the painting is Kinzo's Beatrice, not one that would have made themselves known to Battler.
It's a good point. Forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, at this point in time, there is no portrait hung up. There is no visual indication of what Beatrice looks like.
That's right. I forgot.
No epitaph.
It goes up after Battler stops visiting the island.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Weird. When did that portrait go up?
I want to say 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah, 4 years is in my head as well. So
Kinzo would still have been
I
alive.
wonder if we've been told that.
Yes, Kinzo was alive, put up the portrait, had the epitaph, laid down the gauntlet, and then no one solved it.
One other thing I did want to comment on, unless I'm going to change course just a little bit, unless someone had something to say about that. I had harped on this a few times, and finally it has clicked, which is in episode 2, I think it's 2 and not 3, we get this random scene with Genji, Shannon, Kanon, and Kinzo's study mentioning his will. And we know Genji's whole thing was trying to find the right time to introduce them to Kinzo as who they really are.
Okay.
Does it really count because it's not really Kinzo? I don't think so. But that being included leads me to believe in that episode they are presented.
Okay. And that scene could obviously be metaphorical or it could be a flashback. Then we know they love sneaking in like actual scenes from the past when they're applicable to slot in. So that could definitely fit in there somehow.
We do? When else does that happen?
In episode 6, where Battler is, whenever we see Kudori and Beatrice, a lot of those scenes are deliberately made vague. So she could be talking about Battler or talking about Kinzo, and it could actually be the real Kudori and Beatrice, or it could be Chick Beato. It's like the scenes are like literally undistinguishable between those two things. So I don't say we know that. I'm saying like they theoretically could be doing that. I think they do that. And as we know, my opinion is fact. So
you are a golden witch.
I don't know if it's just the way that you've written this last bit, but well, no, it's not. There's more substance to this. There's parallels there between Maria and Yasu with this whole. We've taken 3 years off their age, and there's emphasis being on Maria acting younger than her own age, and with her occult obsessions and fixations on things. We assume somewhere on an autism spectrum, but like, what is that parallel? Because we don't actually know who her dad is as well, and I'm just wondering how that connects. I'm hoping that there will be something there that connects Maria to Yasu.
Clearly, Maria is an AI because it's a sci-fi story.
of course, yeah.
Based on Yasu the AI.
But in the previous episode, in the episode of this podcast, I should say, in the previous reading, we got the scene where Maria was giving like her story of how she met Beatrice, right? And like one of the key takeaways of that scene was that actually Beatrice had not really firmed up the identity of Beatrice very firmly at that point, right? They kind of collabed on defining who Beatrice was as a witch, and like not their backstory necessarily, but their magic system and all this other stuff was kind of collaboratively worked on between Maria's occult knowledge and the person that was embodying Beatrice at that time as a part of their play.
Yeah, so like I don't know, maybe there's a personality sort of transference, similarity stuff going on, maybe because of how close they were.
I think it's more likely that was, I don't know. That could have just been Kumasawa.
Could be.
But then one other thing I realized is not this year's family conference, but the year prior, right? Kinzo's dead.
Yep.
And they've got to fool everybody for the first time. And once again, there's a passing comment of like, they were able to make sounds like Kinzo was right around the corner in the house, but it was actually Kumasawa doing her shenanigans. This is a person who can act a part. Which fits the role for Beatrice / mastermind / crazy theory that I have that it's really Beatrice, whatever. And it's just like, okay, we've been saying for a long time we want to have more about Kumasawa, what her deal is and why. And it's just like, at this point, she's the last mystery, like of like who's of one of our main cast. Like, what is her deal? Where does she come from?
And Genji, I guess. We don't really know much about Genji.
Yeah, all right.
But also canonically, if we take Kumasawa as Virgilia, that is a form of Beatrice. She was the Beatrice before the title got handed down to current Beatrice. So I think like you're right.
And I mean, she also taught Yasu the magic spells, the protective charms. So
Yeah.
Just like Belnay showed us, if you believe, then the magic becomes real because enough people are in on it to make that the reality.
Yeah, a really interesting read. Looking forward to you seeing the rest of this, Hayley, because it's this summary doesn't do it justice because a lot of this is very functional descriptions of what happens. But I'm really excited for y'all to continue on because y'all are going to get this. As you kind of saw, they showed like the book, and it's just like chapter 1 or whatever. We still got plenty of more to go in terms of explaining Yasu's story. Oh, fun fact: Yasu is named Yasu because that is apparently the culprit of a famous like Japanese detective story. So if you Google that Yasu was the
spoilers, Kyle
culprit, then you'll get confusing answers. So it was deliberately chosen to obfuscate the answer to the.
Oh, I love that. That's brilliant.
That's very good.
Ryukishi said, "Fuck your SEO."
Just as one last thing, I feel like I can never go any episode without mentioning the music. The music in this part,
So good.
I mean, all of episode 7 has been phenomenal. The music, this is the first time that like I've had to pull up like the song on YouTube just to listen to it. It's so good.
Yeah, there's so many fantastic tracks. I was recently just listening to Rurier just because I could, because it's a damn good track.
Which one is that?
That one's it's kind of like a techno-y.
Hum it for me.
God, I can't even hum. It's like do 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 do. It's like, I don't know. It's like a techno beat. It's hard to how to like explain how it goes.
Just play it right here.
RURIAAR. I think is what it's called. It's a super fun one.
Post-production, Kyle, add it right here.
In post, I'll throw it in here, yeah. And make sure this is the one I'm thinking of. Yeah, it's like absolutely dance club music. It's great. Like, there's so many really great songs that just like come up like very rarely. In fact, I think there's a song that plays during the fight between Jessica and Kyrie. There's a song that plays just in that part and never again. It's so weird. Some of the choices that they make. There's just so many songs. They put out like a massive album of music. It's crazy. Any other thoughts before we wrap up?
Pelly, like good story.
No.
Good story, make happy.
I'm not angry anymore. It's my final thought.
Good. Yeah, I was kind of worried going into this one because, like, obviously there's some confusion. Like, you see Yasu and then, like, Shannon's there, and it's like, I think one of the early message Ben sent me was like, well, I guess it's not Shannon. And I was like, But I was like, well, as you read more,
I don't remember this.
it was like very early on, like the first time you like saw it was like Yasu talking about it, and then Shannon appeared on screen. I think you must have sent it.
Yeah, I guess I didn't put it all together. I still hadn't put it together going into this reading that they might actually be the same person.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like they still do a really good job of obfuscating that. Even
I never got that. Yeah.
like when I first read this, did not pick that up at all. I was so confused up until I think when the end of this reading, I think is where it finally clicked. Where I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense.
I agree, but I left it at this doesn't make any sense, and then went, oh, that's stupid. There's a reason I was quiet for the last like 20 minutes is because I felt stupid.
Oh, Ben!
No,
It's not stupid. It's legitimately like
I'm not saying that like self-deprecatingly. I
gotcha.
promised. I'm laughing on the inside, but like it was very interesting with you all saying, oh yeah, they're just Yasu and Shannon are the same person, and I just sat here like thinking. And I'm like, what? And that's the first time, we've talked about how you've felt like the author might be mocking you or you might be feeling stupid by reading this. I didn't feel that way. I felt like I was stupid because I missed something that was more clearly defined than anything we've had before. And I was just like, nah, that's silly. And yeah, so that's why I was quiet at the end. I'm like, what is... Ben, come on here. Come on.
Yeah, and that's why I was excited to have this conversation, because I knew that like through the talking it out, we definitely arrive, where the story wants us to be at this point. It's also it's kind of, I said previously, like there's some like realizations, some truths that you kind of need to reach at certain points for the story to continue on and continue to land, because the story is not going to make this any clearer. Like this is the point where they kind of expects you to understand what it's saying, and it's not going to come back to it. It's like it's going to keep moving. So it's one of the, like, I feel kind of bad sometimes when I'm doing these talks where I'm like hard confirming theories sometimes. I feel a little bit bad to be like, yes, this is the correct theory. But there's also sometimes where it's like, well, we could waffle forever because there's no definitive answer for a lot of these things. So it's like, sometimes it's worth, I think, just saying like, yep, this one was the right one. Now we can go branch off into more theories based on that, at least. So
yeah. I just went back because the other thing is, like, I understand Shannon showing up at first. Like, your first thought is going to be, oh, well, she's here. She can't be the culprit until more is revealed.
That's the trick they do use, yeah.
But also going back to, I was like, why was I so bought in on thinking it was canon so immediately? Like, even when they were like, oh, their name is Yasu, I'm like, why is this name for canon? Why are we using this name to obfuscate it? Obviously, so that we can keep all the theories alive. But the thing that I hadn't finished the last reading in time to be able to comment on this in our last recording. But when I finished the reading for our last recording, there's a throwaway line in it where Will calls episode 5, the one where he ends up in the logic error with Erica? Or is that episode 6?
It's 6.
6. He refers to episode 6 as, quote, Battler's Game of Repentance. And to me, the only person who can absolve him and end his repenting is Beato. And the person who gets him out of that cursed locked room is Kanon. So I went into this reading strong in the theory that Beato is Kanon somehow. And then as soon as Shannon showed up, I was like, Kyle, this is Kanon. Shannon is Kanon's Tyler Durden confirmed. And then everything else that kept happening just continued to reinforce that for me. So
nice.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. I mean, Yasu is not their blessed name. Yasu is their nickname based on their real name,
Yes.
right? We don't actually ever hear what the servants call Yasu
Right.
unless we do, and it's Shannon, right?
Yes.
What is Kanon's name? Because he told Jessica, right?
Yes, that's what I have to ask. He says it, and then Balor even comments is like, I think he was talking to Delta. It's like, you're the man making the story. Is that even his actual name? And it's just like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, Yoshia, I believe.
Yeah, Yoshia is
Yoshia.
what we know it as, which also I told Kyle, but he was like, I don't know if the syllables work this way in Japanese. And I was like, okay, that's a fair point. But I was like, Ya is at the end of Yoshia. So Yasu, while obviously that is more applicable to Yasuda, what if it's just the Ya, Yoshia, Yasu?
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, I officially want to put in my resignation letter now. After that,
That was like, man, Becca, that you picked up on that is wow.
Amazing.
I'm
Very clever.
impressed. Yeah.
There was one other thing. Sorry, I'm scrolling back
Okay.
through my conversation with Kyle because I was like, there was one other thing that I wanted to bring up before we wrap this up. Okay, so this is the other thing, and this is an unconfirmed thing because I have not had the time to go back through the episodes and kind of suss this out.
Okay.
But Yasu saying they're reading and then there were none specifically, which low-key spoilers for like a century-old book to everybody who hasn't read, and then there were none. The culprit in that book fakes their own death. So that leads me to believe that Beatrice fakes their own death in every
Mhm.
version of the game at some point.
I have to imagine the author was also tempted to have them be like, that's it. I know who did it. Cut lights and kill them.
So if you think of game one and Shannon's, their faces all being messed up in the shed, right?
Mhm.
But the ring being the identifier for Shannon.
Yes. I was talking to Kyle and Cap about that,
Yeah.
but we also see that Shannon's face is one of the ones that's only half smashed, so they can confirm it's Shannon. So how? Interesting. But also, Kanon's body mysteriously disappears from the boiler room in that game as well. So that's the
Wow.
first game, right? Kanon gets killed in the boiler room and then it disappears.
Do they all see Kanon's dead body down there?
They see
It doesn't
Kinzo's
disappear. Dr.
body,
Nanjo
right?
takes it back to the servant's room to
Oh,
treat him,
wait.
and he dies off screen.
Okay.
Hold
never
up.
mind. Dr. Nanjo's in on it, all the servants.
Sorry, that reaction there was the toes, the polydactyl.
Hmm?
If that's genetic, and we are now learning of other children of Kinzo,
Oh.
how many are there? Whose body was that?
Was it actually old
Because
Kinzo's
Kinzo's been
corpse?
dead a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the fifth game, Battler uses the gold truth to guarantee that the corpse that he presents is.
What gold truth, Kyle? It's not real.
you don't speak to me of the gold truth.
Sorry, I cut you off on purpose, but yeah.
No, that's the end of it. I mean, like we have some gold truth that says that that's Kinzo's body. We have, at least in that game, there's probably some red truths that say that it's Kinzo's body in some games, but it's unclear. Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing to think about if there's other people that have extra toes.
Becca and I went back and rewatched the first Twilight reveal from episode 1. And I was like, all right, so the only people to confirm that it was Shannon was Kanon and Hideyoshi.
Mhm.
And in that moment, Kanon could have said or done something to coerce him. But I'm like, man, the read on Hideyoshi is so genuine that it's like hard to say. But like, I mean, in this case, so many people who we know have lied have acted so convincingly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is kind of a it's not a plot hole, but it is like we just have to agree that every one of these fucking people are great fucking liars,
Yeah.
are great actors, are like magicians with makeup. Like there's so much shit that like
Here's the thing.
gets away with here.
They're all backstabbing business people. So honestly, I do believe they're all pretty good liars.
Well, and then if Kanon said something along the lines of like, go along with this or your son is dead.
Yeah.
You know, like there are points where he gets really loud.
There's that, but there's also the part we know where every single adult member of the Ushiromiya family needs a lot of money and they need it
Right
right
now.
Right now,
And
yeah.
if Kanon is like, hey, if somehow got to Hideyoshi, because also in the first Twilight, Kanon is the one who finds the bodies and either he finds them and brings them to Genji or they find them together. I can't remember one of those. But like if Kanon got to Hideyoshi before this somehow in order to like make a deal or something, like who knows? there are so many possibilities still. And that's the thing you were saying earlier, Kyle. We're getting a lot of answers, and yet still so many
Yep.
untold questions remain.
So interesting to like. We are going to get some more definitive. We're going to get some more definitive, being like, as in like, we will get more answers, but they will define things further, but they will never going to get super definitive answers. But the manga does give even more definitive answers. I shouldn't have used the word definitive because definitive means like literally it's the end point of that. The manga gives more explicit answers, I would say. So in a way, it's like the author kind of viewed the manga as being like their last chance to like say like there is an answer to those who are doubting me. Because the book, the van doesn't give explicit answers, know that they do exist, and here they are, right? So, and in some ways, people see the manga as a betrayal, right, of the premise of the story, of some of the themes. So, and that's something we'll definitely talk about more as we get towards the end of the story, because like we can start talking more about like the broader themes of what Umineko is trying to say, because that's largely what episode 8 is about, honestly. So that is something I'm very excited to talk more about. All right, yeah. So next time we'll be reading about 2.5 hours of the VN, ending on the line. What was his name again? I'm pretty sure it was. Which is videos 123 through 125 of the YouTube playlist.
Okay, sure.
That's such asshole behavior. What's his name again? Seriously.
This one's short because the one after it is
A beast.
It's not that it's super long, but it is a chunk of answers that we will want to talk about. I would say each of these readings is kind of giving a specific subset of answers. Like this one was like broadly, who is the actual culprit? Like you can answer that question with what we read today. For the most part. The next one will give you some answers about their motives. The one after that will give you some more definitive answers about some of the specific mystery stuff, right? So like they're kind of like subsected out so we can talk about specific things. So this next one is it's really interesting. I'll be interested to hear what you think about that and to see what aspects of this you think have been seeded throughout the previous parts of the story, if you feel like it's been sufficiently seeded enough to count as being a proper mystery with those answers for the motives that we'll get in this next read.
And then it's the one after that is Epitaph, right?
Yep, Epitaph is solved.
My God.
The full explanation of Epitaph is in the episode after that, which would be 7.5.
We're so close. We're so close.
I
Yeah.
do not have time right now.
Oh, I know you
Is
don't.
the
That's
real
fine.
kicker. It's just, and it's killing me that I don't have time for spending hours of nonsense and Wikipedia holes like I was before. But yeah.
Yeah, like that's what it is. It takes hours of nonsense.
So I might not solve it. The poll might have been correct.
You're going to be so mad when you see the answers and how bullshit they are.
Probably.
All right. Well, thank y'all for joining us. I hope y'all enjoyed listening to us finding out some of these answers and speculating on some of the stuff we'll be seeing in the future. I'm really looking forward to y'all continuing to read this and finding out more. And I'm sure the people at home are enjoying being the Kumasawas of seeing people try and speculate on the mysteries that I've already read. So
Kyle's not our Beatrice. Kyle's our Kumasawa, you guys.
yeah,
Love
And
it.
Kumasawa done it.
it's true.
Kumasawa done it.
All right. Thank you for joining us. And remember to think off meta.